thank the Lord together. Father, we thank you for your son Jesus. We thank you, Lord, for the great nation that we live in. We're honored to live in it, but we uphold it too. We contend for it. We uphold it with these wonderful constitutional principles. Just like in the scripture, you gave us the Word of God. You gave us something to depend on. And Lord, in our government, we have this Constitution. It's an awesome thing that we've studied for the past few years. Lord, we ask you to bless each person here. We ask you to bless the speakers, give them wisdom, give them total understanding in what they're saying, and being able to answer questions and bring honor and glory to you. We thank you. Thank you for this time that we have together once a month. We thank you for each and every person that you bring here. We're grateful for their service to you, first of all, and then next to the nation. And it's just an honor to do this, and we thank you. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Born and reborn.
You may be seated. Drink, I do have that running, so you can just point it wherever you need to, because I know Lyle likes to move around and make it slightly difficult, but that's okay. We still love it. That's Lyle, right?
You'll never be on it.
We have some good news. We're getting some good views on all the videos, and so we decided we're going to also do a Facebook Live for those that can't be here. And when we do these Facebook Lives, hundreds of people watch them. It's just amazing. It's just absolutely amazing. And I'm sure friendly people and some unfriendly people, but that's okay, right? They can watch it too. It's a free country. Amen. All right, are you here? How many of you here tonight? Raise your hand. All right. My wife will tell you, don't say anything. You'll encourage him, but that's all right.
I'm a figment of your imagination.
Thank you.
We want to encourage you.
Okay, so we're doing good on YouTube, and we've had 3 new subscribers this month. And what we'd like for you to do is to invite people to subscribe to these videos, because they do watch them all over the state. We get reports when we go to state meetings. People say, oh, you are the guys that do that thing. And they call it that thing for some reason. But it's a great tool for people. And of course, we put them on Facebook, so you can like them and subscribe them. Subscribe to John Patriot, or you can do it on YouTube. And either way, you'll get to see the edited messages that Lois does every month, and they're really good. She flies the slides in and out and does a bunch of neat things. So we're very happy at what's going on. Next month, I believe it's September 8th, we will have another meeting at 6 o'clock, September 8th. Mark that on your calendar. And I believe that's all I have. So with that, I'm going to, yes?
Please turn your phones down.
Oh, please turn your phones down. Please, if you have a question, please give it on the microphone. It's dead air time on these videos if you don't use a microphone. You're not heard, and you all have such good questions. I know this is Wyoming. I know people don't like to use a microphone, but please, we ask you. We won't force you to. Do we have anybody big in here? Maybe Chris Smith, would you force people to? No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, with that, Lyle, come make some sense here. Thank you for doing this, and Lyle's going to speak on what are America's founding principles. And yeah, I don't think he's going to go through all of them tonight, but do what you can.
Okay. But what I'd like to do is turn it over to Rolf first. But just a few things to get at. Here recently,
I don't know how to take that off without busting it up. Can I just
John
pop
Birch
it off?
Society has been putting out some really good
I just pop that off.
publications
So
in
there's
New
what a button.
American. How many of you happen to have
Oh,
a
it's gonna
John
pull it
Birch
off.
membership?
Okay.
Oh,
Can't
good.
really
So
see
you're
that
getting
too
the
well.
New American. And if those of you,
Okay.
I think you can actually go online to John Birch Society
The only thing
and
is,
actually get
you should be able to
copies,
do close-ups
or at
on
least
the slides.
a PDF copy of this.
You can't?
It's a good idea.
Okay.
The most recent one, New American Global Power Graph, and there's a global censorship, a climate tyranny, population collapse. Let's see, this one's July 31st, BlackRock, Masters of the Universe. BlackRock, Alex Newman, he's one of the top guys for John Birch Society, Global Taxman cometh, Sound of Freedom, and a permanent engine for corruption. And I think a lot of that probably comes from the UN. And this one here is good. World War III on the horizon. Trump's exposed South African genocide, and minding your own business. This is something that we'll probably get into also with these, what are America's founding principles. So if you're interested in actually getting more information from John Birch, by the way, they've been publishing a magazine, not necessarily the New American. Since 1957, there was one before that, but they've been publishing magazines now since 1957. And during that time, they've only published one retraction. That's pretty accurate. They're slow to publish, but they're accurate in what they publish. So if you want the truth, that's a good place to go to it. If you're interested in having a membership with the John Birch Society, I think it's $50 a year. The last tank of gas I bought was much more than that. So with that, I'm going to give you Rolf. And he's going to come and talk about nuclear waste storage and some things I think about the city. Is that correct, Rolf?
Yeah, well, yep.
Okay, here you go. And then I'll be back.
Remember, he's a psychopath is what he's. All right, so my name is Rolf Arands. Most of you have seen me here before. I'm going to do a quick poll. This is not planned. How many people here are aware of the nuclear interest here in Wyoming? Just raise your hands. I think pretty much everyone. Chris, I know you got to raise your hands. All right, so everyone's aware. I've been digging through all of the articles and all the information we're seeing here, and it's mind-blowing. So I'm still sorting through. People have feedback, questions, criticisms. Shout it out. I've learned a lot, and I've got a lot to learn. I do have a Ph.D. in engineering. I'm going to refer to that in a few minutes. Just spacebar.
You can do the up arrow.
Okay. I just found this article yesterday, and let me turn around. So what I have on here, you'll see the reference that I'm taking it from, so GNR's Gillette News Record, the date that I found this information. This is referring to Commissioner Ford, who is, did I skip something?
You might have missed a slide.
Yeah, I have the other one.
Yeah, okay. I double tapped, all right.
Yeah.
All right, sorry, I'll come back to that. All right, so I found information, let me go back another step. The city council meeting minutes are a treasure trove of information. I downloaded everything from 2022 to the last meeting, which is hundreds of, maybe a couple hundred documents. Very hard to find information, so I indexed them so that I can search and find information very quickly in a couple seconds. So some of the information here is drawn out of there. I don't have a lot of detail on that, but it's very difficult to go through 300 pages as our councilman know. Anyway, I want to talk about, I'm going to be very clear. So the mayor, there's a prior council, and that included Mayor Lundvall, Tricia Simonson, council people Jim West, Bill Montgomery, Tim Carsrud, Heidi Bruce, and Nathan McClellan. And then our current council, Simonson and Bill Montgomery are out, and Chris Smith, I think he's here. Where are you, Chris?
In the back.
Oh, there you are. And Jack Ferry are in. So I'm going to try to be clear. I believe Commissioner Ford and Commissioner Clem are for pro-nuclear, and correct me if I'm wrong. All right. When I'm digging through all this information, there's a lot of stuff showing up for BWF. Yes, sir.
Can you clarify pro-nuclear? Because I think, I'm pro-nuclear, but I don't want the waste to come here.
Well, they want to bring it all here.
Okay.
So that's a good question. So pro-nuclear, Good correction. So pro-nuclear means bringing all the industry, bringing all the stuff, and, oh, we'll store the waste here somewhere in Gillette. That's how I interpret that. Agree with that? All right.
Semi-pro. He was joking.
Oh,
Okay, again, let me remind you, we're videotaping this, and get your questions on the microphone. Rolf, hold it out.
and if you have questions, just flag me as John did before. All right. So there's a lot of stuff showing up in the council minutes for BWX Technologies that goes all the way back to 2023. So this is not something new. They're going for a couple of years. And Radiant showed up a little bit, and Idaho National Laboratory. We just spent a couple $1,000s to pay for the trips for some people there. All taxpayer money. I wanted to find out if there's public hearings going on in this stuff. Has anyone been to a public hearing on nuclear? I'm sure these two representatives have. Anyone else? Because there is none.
The state.
The state, but here locally in Gillette. No. The only thing I found was back in December of 23, there was a vendor-only open house that was held somewhere in town here. That's the only thing I found. And I'm going to come back to that on the next slide. Oops, nope. All right, so Commissioner Ford went down to Washington, D.C. This was in Gillette News Record a couple weeks ago. And he's keeping his finger on the pulse of what's happening in D.C. And my question is, shouldn't we be keeping our finger on the pulse of what's happening here in Campbell County? Maybe he is, maybe he isn't, but that didn't show up here. That's a question I had. The second one is I've spent hours and hours and hours reading this stuff and learning about nuclear. Not everyone has that kind of time, families, jobs, travel, whatever. So Jim Ford seems to think people are going to fear what they don't understand and they have to spend the time and research this stuff. And my question is that the expectation? Everyone's going to get in and read about alpha, beta, gamma, all this stuff? I don't think so. And what is being done at the county and the state, or county and the local level to educate people? So far I found nothing. If I'm wrong, please tell me. All right. Tremendous lack of clarity. I think this is causing a lot of the problems. I'm going to go back one slide. So you see, people fear what they don't understand. Why don't they understand it? Because I think there's a lot of confusing information coming out. So Gillette News Record a couple weeks ago, Mayor Lundvall said he has signed non-disclosure, so he can't talk about the companies looking at Gillette. So we don't know the companies. He can't talk about the timelines, so we don't know how fast or slow things are moving. That's going to create anxiety. It's created anxiety in me. The third one is going back to what Representative Bear John told us, or asked. There's no plan for the waste. As far as plans for temporary storage, those plans have yet to be nailed down. That's a concern, in my opinion. Still with me?
Yes.
Still awake?
Yeah.
All right. The first one is some word salad that the mayor quoted. I don't even know what he's trying to say, except we don't have a plan for the waste. That's how I interpret that. Councilwoman Heidi Gross basically said the same thing. There are companies interested, but we don't know we can't talk about them, although we pretty much know who they are. And the last one is we're going to wait for everyone to come here, and then we're going to form a plan to do something. And I'm not sure that has the right order. I think we have to have a plan as they come in. Again, that's my opinion. If people disagree. I asked for a meeting with the mayor a couple weeks ago, and in attendance, a lot of you are here. Mayor Lundvall, Administrator Cole, Attorney Brown, Commissioner Means, and Ford were there, Councilman Clary, Pat Collins, and the mayor decided to bring in a nuclear engineer from Washington, D.C. to join the fund. It was very interesting. Rod McCullum, you probably know who he is. Interesting character. The meeting was an hour and a half. I'm only going to give a couple highlights here. They basically said the storage of waste is a federal problem, not our problem to solve. Punted. That's what they said. So we don't have a short-term or a long-term solution, and that's concerning. The second one, so I have a Ph.D. in engineering, and I studied contaminants in groundwater and soils. I studied organic, inorganic, leachates from landfills, and I studied radioactive isotopes. So this is in my wheelhouse of what I understand. Am I an expert? No, but I have a lot of familiarity. I spent 3 years at Savannah River site. and also in the Netherlands, I did research at a nuclear facility there. So I have some exposure,
And published.
and I have some publications, yes. So I asked, he said, they're gonna put them in licensed canisters, stick them in the ground. And those canisters, I asked, how long will those canisters last? 50 to 100 years. Then what happens? Well, they'll start to break down. Well, then what happens? Well, the soil will contain the radioactivity. And I said,
Right.
not so fast. And I explained to him from my background what's gonna happen. He couldn't answer my question. Again, that's a lack of clarity. Any questions? Any questions, anybody? Nope, okay. All right, this is a little double speak I found, and maybe with two representatives here, maybe you guys can point this out. Two publications talked about L&H partnering with BWXT in 2023 and 2024. Clearly states they are partners, they're working together. Yet I think they appeared before a committee, I don't know if you guys are on that committee, that they're interested in partnering with companies here, including L&H. So maybe it's just a wording issue, but it's puzzling that they're telling the state level we're going to partner when it was confusing.
They're already.
Any thoughts on that? No?
Yeah, I can speak.
Over to Representative Knapp.
So, John talked about nuclear being kind of a chain. Basically, you've got the mining of uranium, you've got the fuel that you can upgrade, you've got the fabrication, which is what you're talking about now, manufacturing. So most L&H, in fact, is one of the premier manufacturers, I would say, in the U.S. They do parts for NASA, very intricate, detailed fabrication. In a private conversation with L&H Welding, they said that they have actually bid projects with BWXT before and never have received one. And a lot of that reason, I think, is because BWXT is a split off of what was Babcock and Wilcox, now still a separate company. But a lot of the manufacturing, they go for higher end, bigger manufacturers, and often union manufacturers too. So I don't think L&H has any illusion of even though they're partnering, of getting any of those contracts or any of those bids. So I think there's a couple manufacturers in Casper that can handle it as well. But I think in the future, it's yet to be seen whether they would actually use L&H or any other manufacturer.
Just to be clear, that the manufacturing is parts for reactors. That's what the manufacturing. And after the manufacturing, the next stage is to build a reactor, create electricity, and then you have to deal with the waste. That's the cycle.
Yeah. I just wondered, so are they partners already or not? Because that's what's the question. Do you know?
That wasn't clear. I don't know.
Did you know?
I think both Radiant and BWXT are looking for proponents of the process, I would say. So I do believe L&H has at least certified themselves to be a partner if they were chosen to do anything. But I don't think L&H's interests are so much in the manufacturing as the finished product and buying those and leasing those out. So.
All right. I saw this article on, I think it was Saturday, August 2nd, and Representative Alaman, which I'm sure you guys know. And I was jumping around. I wanted to check on him on Monday morning. Had about a half-hour conversation with him. Great man, very, very knowledgeable. So a little bit of this is drawn, paraphrased from my conversation with him. I interrupted his trip to the dry cleaner, so he had to call me back. Anyway, and I put parallel universe because it feels like there's a similar stuff happening here in Gillette. I noted here that things are happening over 2 years, and here again is that 2 years showing up. Representative Alamand said he became aware of what's going on, and he jumped in and joined the fray. resident, all this is from the Gillette News Record. So there was a resident there who knew nothing about what was going on until Representative Alan started raising the warning flags. And the last one is something to think about. Radiant wanted to store the waste on site for 30 to 40 years. And that's what drew the flag from the community saying that no. This was his quote, and it's reflected. There's an article that just came out, and I showed it to our Freedom Caucus members here. It's reflected in what they just told me. This is an open door to making Wyoming a toxic waste dump, a radioactive waste dump. That's what he cited. The mayor at Arands was for it, even though the residents were against it. Representative Alaman ran a poll, and I think he said 72% were against storing waste in his town. Meanwhile, here in Gillette, our mayor wants to bring it on. I'm going to go back a couple slides. The middle bullet. It was on his timeline, didn't be here already. So the mayor wants us here yesterday. Sorry for flipping back on you guys here. Hope I'm not making anyone dizzy.
So that says the,
Hold on, bring the microphone.
I know.
So that says become the nation's radioactive dumping ground. Not just Gillette's, the nation. That's huge.
All right. So the mayor's fighting to bring nuclear to Gillette. No one has heard. Have we had any polls? I know John Baer ran a poll. I'm going to comment. I think it's coming on the next slide. But there's been no information, no communication. We just see articles dribbling out on us. So I don't know if that's communication, but the mayor's fighting for something that I don't know if it reflects. Maybe some people are pro-nuclear. Maybe some people want it all. Maybe part of it, as John has correctly pointed out. I don't know. So John Baer shared this with me. A lot of information here, but it's very similar to what the Bar None poll showed. Do people trust the safety? 53% no. Environmental concerns, 65% very concerned, 17% somewhat concerned. Conditional support for storage, 60% no. I think it's reflected in what, yes sir?
I might tell them.
Yeah, if you want to talk through this more now.
So this poll is my district and Abby's district. So this would be the southern part of Campbell County and the eastern part of the city of Gillette.
Do you want to speak to anything, John, or just?
No, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I just wanted to get the pulse
Clarify.
of those people on nuclear waste and nuclear here in Gillette. Hearing that things were happening, just as Rolf has and as he shared with you. So just sent out this poll. There was about 2,000 text messages went out to the different people, and we got results were about 80 people responded, and that's what this is compiling here.
Two questions.
Turn it around.
What is the projected physical volume of the nation's waste that would end up here? Is it like a square mile or a square kilometer in terms of volume? And my second question is, since it's a time-dependent process, are there any means to track the ages of the containers or the sites? And let's say at 75 years, package them in new safe containers.
Great questions. I've read about the volume of waste. I'm not going to speculate. I remember hearing about a couple football fields, several feet. I don't remember the number. But I don't know. I don't know how much there is, because we're talking nation and possibly the world's dumping ground, as she said. So I don't know the volume.
It's going to keep increasing.
Yeah, I can speak.
That's why I said projected over 100 years.
Yeah, I've learned quite a bit through minerals committee meetings and then just deep diving into this. But it's estimated, but there's about 120,000 tons of high-end nuclear waste across the U.S. right now, because every site right now stores their own. So the law in the U.S. is that Yucca Mountain was to be the repository, the central repository, but that didn't pan out. But that's still current law in the U.S. So to get around that, they had to say, well, you can store nuclear waste temporarily on site, and we'll call that temporary waste. So now, because there's so many places that have temporary waste, they're looking for about 20 repositories nationwide to consolidate to, and those will be called intermediate waste sites, and those will be for 100 years. Temporary is supposed to be permitted for 40. After 40 years, of course, we're getting to the point we're passing that, they'll actually re-permit those sites. So typically when you store waste, you sign an agreement with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, and then once you pass that certain date for your site, they are basically in breach of their contract because they don't have a central repository yet. So you get in line to sue the federal government every year to receive money for your temporary repository. So the federal government has a fund, it's about $400 to $600 million that they divvy out amongst about 92 sites a year as a kind of a bribe to keep your waste where it's at because they're in violation of their contract. And so the danger that we face is the NRC permits directly through vendors. They don't permit through a state or anything like that. There's no bonding with the state whatsoever. So because of that, they decided they would permit a site in Texas on the Permian Basin for up to 40,000 tons of nuclear waste from all states. Texas disagreed with that, you might imagine, and so they sued, and it went to the Supreme Court and they lost. They said that they weren't able to file a lawsuit because they weren't a member. What do you call it, John?
They didn't have standing.
Yeah, didn't have standing. So the other part of that lawsuit was whether or not the federal government, the NRC, has that authority to permit with the vendor without the state's approval, and that was never answered in that case. So Wyoming is open right now to the danger of the NRC permitting with a private company for waste in Wyoming. So we need to be sure that we are vigilant in any open door to that happening and whether that violates Wyoming law.
What was the amount of waste you said?
Bring the mic back. Bring the mic back.
We don't know.
You can say it. Or repeat the question. You can repeat it up there.
Just repeat it up there. How much waste was it?
No.
How much did you say waste there is currently?
Nationwide.
Yeah, nationwide, it's about 120,000 tons. There's actually more than that, that's low-level waste. If you start to look into that, it's quite a bit of waste nationwide beyond 120,000 tons. But we produce an additional 2,000 tons per year. And that's, again, being stored on site. So.
Can you explain the Wyoming law, what it stands right now for nuclear waste, and why they're trying to change it in the Minerals Committee?
Yeah. So for right now, Wyoming law, because of the plant that happened in Kemmerer, there's a pilot project going on from Bill Gates that has a nuclear plant in Kemmerer that's going to be what they call a small nuclear plant. But basically, they are allowed to store waste on site. So wherever you produce the energy from a nuclear plant, you can store on site nuclear waste. The reason Radiant is trying to get into Casper and BWXT into Gillette, two different projects, but Radiant is basically saying, well, we're going to build these small nuclear reactors or advanced microreactors, and about every 5 years, those need to be refilled. They go all over the country. They come back to Casper, for bar none, get refilled, and that waste that was the old fuel that was in there becomes waste. So with the contracts that they have anticipated, it would be about 500 tons that would be stored in Casper on site. So they need a change in the law to include production, manufacturing of those devices to come back and be refueled. And so, you know, I talked to Texas, the Attorney General's office, and said, what would have prevented this whole thing from happening in Texas? Because Texas stores on-site waste for their reactors. And they said a full ban on nuclear waste in Wyoming, including transportation, and then to treat Kemmer as a pilot project, which it is, to see if their reactor will work. So they're not even permitted for that yet. And then theirs would go to Idaho National Labs to be tested after they do receive their permit to see if that would work. So.
Just want to clarify. So just to be really clear, our laws state that no nuclear waste from other states can come here. And nuclear waste that's produced here has to have an exception from the legislature to be able to do that. So Kemmerer got that exception. And now Radiant wants to take waste from other states because they're going to ship these small reactors out of state, burn it out of state, and bring it back here. That would require a change in our law because we don't allow that at all. And that excludes us from being able to have a repository here. So if we were going to have a repository for the nation and the world, we'd have to change our laws. Or, as Chris said, the NRC could just do something with private people and go around us. But our laws would prohibit them doing that, theoretically.
Are they going to try to change the law? Is anyone trying to change that law right now? Well, that's important.
So the Minerals Committee has heard
Say that.
A bill that would have come forward for Radiant. That's been tabled. So in essence, for the interim committee period, it's done. People will probably bring it as personal bills, which they have in the past. They brought both bills similar to the Radiant bill, and they brought bills actually to store nuclear waste from other states into our state. So when you hear people say that's conjecture, that's fear-mongering, that's fear, it's actually bills that have been brought forward and been rejected.
So far.
So far. And John?
Can you talk about the Senate file that passed the Senate and failed in the House? Where did it pass? Where did it fail?
So the Senate seems to be more accepting of the proposals. That would have allowed, again, waste to come into Wyoming to be stored. That actually failed in our committee in the House.
After passing the Senate.
After passing the Senate, yes. There was another bill that was brought by our former chairman of the House Minerals Committee, last second bill in interim, and that again would have brought in nuclear waste to Wyoming, and that again failed our committee. So both House killed those bills.
Is there any economic advantage being proposed to do this in Wyoming?
Well, that's the argument you hear, because one would have to ask themselves, why would it?
State the question.
Oh, the question was there an economic advantage to doing that?
Or power advantage, electricity.
Okay. Nuclear electricity is actually typically higher than coal or natural gas. These small reactors that they're looking at are specifically for defense purposes up front. So both of those companies, Radiant and BWXT, typically are what you would call defense contractor. So they need those for remote sites, for what they view as reliable energy for bases. And so they're really looking at that part of that for this. The waste part You heard me say that there is a fund that basically gives to communities that agree to store waste. Because again, I would ask myself, why would anybody want to bring nuclear waste, which lasts tens of thousands of years, to Wyoming?
Hundreds of thousands, he said.
Hundreds of thousands of years. And it's a good question. I think there's a handful of people that look at it as an economic opportunity, whether it's privately or whether it's for the state. However, as a business owner, I take a look at liability, right? And so to give you some idea, in Hanford stores waste, Hanford in Washington State, they dealt with a lot of military waste and recycling and plutonium and things like that, but their cleanup project is estimated to go to 2076 at a tune of $600 billion. So they have spent about $50 billion so far, which oddly enough, BWXT is in charge of that waste cleanup project right now. So when you look at the future and you think about how much money you could have even remotely brought in for nuclear waste, it does not pencil out if something were to happen. Theirs is about 5 years from reaching their water aquifer. And so that's another issue is, of course, you've seen some water issues with downstream states from Wyoming. So if there were ever something, it just is exponential when you start thinking of the consequences of waste. And you'll hear people say there's never been a leak. Never been a leak. So there's all different types of casking. One was wet casking, which is what was happening in Hanford. 3 of their tanks are confirmed leaking. About 66 are suspected of leaking. And so that's a wet cast, which is then, it's got water, and then you've got your steel that surrounds the waste and the concrete. Then they went to dry casking, and dry casking is split up into 2 different categories right now. One is called thin casking, and that's just the measurement of cement and the measurement of steel, and then they use gas to cool. But those have shown signs of cracking, and also the welds typically show signs of failure. And so then the NRC came out with a report in 2015 and said, we need to go to thick casking. And so that's just a thicker cement and a thicker steel. However, the fuels that are being proposed both at Radiant and BWXT is called trisofuel. And that is they've packed it into a small, almost a peppercorn type of ceramic surrounding, but it gives off much more energy because of that compaction. However, when it comes out as a waste, it is also more toxic than any other waste we've ever dealt with. And so my question that I've asked the NRC is, so we've dealt with different types of waste, but nuclear waste in general, over a period of years. We've tried wet casking, we've tried thin casking, thick casking, and all we can say so far is that that hasn't worked, right? And so now we have an isotope that is 19.72 versus regular commercial waste, which is 2.5 to 5%. So we've gotten that much higher in toxicity, and we don't know how that's going to interact with the casks that we have today. We won't know for hundreds of years. So you really can't say safe when you're putting that kind of isotope in to a cask. And they'll show you a cask getting hit by a train or dropping from a plane and not causing any damage. And I always say, it's not what's outside, it's what's inside that's degrading the concrete and the steel that we're concerned with. And over hundreds of years, if it does leak, then what?
If there's a leak, it could be less than 100 years.
Oh, correct,
All right, so you keep saying hundreds of years, but it could be much less.
correct. I'm giving them the
I know.
benefit of the doubt.
Well, I'm not giving them any benefit.
Well, it is less than 100 years.
So that the audience can hear me, I just want to reiterate with these wastes that are putting in stainless steel containers and concrete, whether it's thin or thick or whatever, this is radioactive material generating heat. And what they're proposing in Wyoming is drilling wells or holes in the ground and putting them down in horizontal. There's no way to inspect them really when they're down there. How do you get them back out to inspect them? Yeah?
And what about aquifers?
Like, that question came up when we met with Rod McCullum. They said they're gonna go down 1,500 feet, 2,000 feet, drop them in, they could be retrievable. I asked how deep are the aquifers here in Wyoming, he couldn't answer. That's exactly what Chris Knapp said. I think there was a question you wanted, did you have a question before?
Well, yeah,
Go back there.
Yeah, Chris, you mentioned the economic to Wyoming, or to Gillette. And you said our federal government is allotting $400 to $600 million for those private companies to store waste, correct? And you said it just doesn't they're spending billions over in Washington State. So you'd have to ask the question, I think if you follow the money and you follow the quick dollar, kind of like Atlas Carbon, and if anybody knows who was part of Atlas Carbon, his name was mentioned tonight, I'm not gonna mention it. They're looking for that opportunity and the dollar here in Gillette, Wyoming, regardless of if it's safe, if it's not safe. And I think that's one thing you have to look at. And two, uranium in the United States, U.S. companies only own 10%. That's it. It might even be less than that now. And it's owned primarily by Russia and Ukraine and Croatian companies. And you have one right here in, I think it's in Oshodo. It's Strata. Okay? So if you look at why are we wanting nuclear if we only own 10% of their uranium? Are we going to mine their uranium, keep mining from Wyoming? Is that what they're okay? So anyways, that's something to think about. Thanks.
So Chris, I'm going to let you answer the question, and Jack, you've got a question or a statement also. By the way, we're not going to go into the Constitution tonight because this is very important. This is a lot of information that's being shared. But Chris, you said earlier, and I'll give you back the mic so you can answer it, that the nuclear energy producing electricity actually costs more than coal. But the idea of storing nuclear waste is somebody's paying for that, because you can't just drill holes in the ground and then close up the shop at night and go home. There's got to be a facility there, there's got to be guards, there's got to be electricity, there's got to be maintenance, there's got to be crews.
Back up a
Somebody
little.
has to pay for all this.
Back up a little.
Oh, I'm sorry, I should be back here.
Thank you.
I'm getting in the middle of this, but with coal, you burn it and you have ash. There's no storage. It goes back in where they mined it from, they use it in concrete, they use it in pavement. Ash becomes a product, consumable product. So I'll let you answer the question about cost of nuclear electricity.
And they've actually found rare earth minerals in ash too. More prevalent on the East Coast, but easier to extract with our coal. So to answer the question about like mining, as we mentioned, we see nuclear as a chain. We do mine uranium in Wyoming, and you mentioned Strata. I think theirs goes to Australia, but yes, we would put a smiley face by mining uranium in Wyoming. That is something that we can retrieve taxes from for the state. It does provide jobs for people. The fabrication, we would say okay to also. We can fabricate very well. Those can go out of state, even as a finished SMR or small nuclear reactor or an advanced nuclear reactor. Those can be built here and then go out of state to be filled and replenished somewhere out of state. So we do have opportunities in the line of nuclear production. Again, we just have a problem, a real problem, with any waste being left in Wyoming. And when you talk to proponents, they kind of use some words where they say, hey, if you're against nuclear waste, you're against nuclear energy.
No.
Well, that's not true. That is not true. So you got to be careful when you're talking to people and how they frame the argument, because they're framing it for some reason to include the waste product.
I just want to share with you some of the questions I asked during that meeting that we had with the mayor and Mr. Ford. Being an engineer in the mining and chemical business all my life, when you deal with a product and you mine it, there's always a mass material balance. There's got to be. Because you take 1 ounce of gold and a 5-pound rock, when you crush get the gold out, that's all waste. You got to go somewhere with it, right? The same thing with our process. There's the liquid waste as well. There's also air waste. When I asked the mayor and Mr. Ford, I said, do you have a process flow diagram from anybody? Do you have any mass balances? Anything at all? None. In fact, they didn't really know what I was talking about. So my question was to them, and it's still the question, well, you're trying to market something, you don't understand the full process. That's insane. We never do that any other corporation in the United States of America. And they're trying to sell it on just a half-baked thought that they think they like, that they don't understand the whole process. And if they ever get that completed, they're going to open their eyes and say, wow. I hope they say wow, instead of saying, hey, bring it to Wyoming. Because that is a concern that we all need to be aware of, is the waste, and it will generate waste.
That's right. All right, let's all go to Priscilla here. And then I have just 2 more slides, and I'd like to go out here.
No, I'll just say it here. Well, for your information, I worked at Hanford before I was married. That was about 40 years ago, and we were in the production of weapons-grade plutonium for DOD. It was a DOD facility, and so this is 40 years ago, all this was happening. We still, back then, worried about the waste, controlling the waste. And if you think about concrete around here, you know, the bridge or whatever, concrete deteriorates. And so they should have a pretty good idea how long some of these concrete things are gonna last. But while I was working there, I had to go over my whole body every time I went into the facility with a Geiger counter. And there was only one time where I was hot. So I can't remember what we did, but when I was hot, everybody freaked out. But to this day, they're monitoring my health personally every 4 years as having worked there as an employee there. So I am not against nuclear waste per se, but there is nothing that they can do about the waste. I mean, they did Yucca Mountain, that didn't work, nothing works. And so I don't know what they think they're gonna do with it, but there is nothing to do.
I'm just gonna wrap up 2 slides, it'll be quick, and then we'll go, I don't know your name, Man in Orange. All right, John Bear's poll here again. Transportation risks. So this is something that hit me. So we're gonna send a mini reactor on a trailer to Tennessee. And it's been run for 5 years. Now that stuff is hot. And we're gonna put it back on the tractor trailer and drive it back to Wyoming. And I scratched my head and said, what could possibly go wrong with this if that tractor trailer overturns? We have this highly active stuff. Maybe they're already thinking about this, but just food for thought. Someone asked about the economic benefit. I think it was John's poll. and the one from Barnon, they understand there's economic value in this. They just want the waste question to be answered. I think this, 2 more slides, all right. I found this from Cowboy State Daily, April 24th. This is LNH CEO Mike Wandler. This is a direct quote. Other places don't want to do this. It was in the context of nuclear industry. They don't want it in their backyard, and that's fine, so let's do it here. That just struck me as a head scratcher. Maybe I'm reading it out of context, but it was, sorry. All right, that's it, and we'll go to you guys. Determine your comfort level. John pointed out there's a difference between nuclear, and I get what your point was. A good point. These two guys are great. I've called Representative Alamand. I've talked to Troy McCune. These guys are very approachable. They're here. Thank you, guys. Jack Clary has really been opposing and questioning on our council what's going on here. He's been pushing back on this hard. He needs support. We need support. We need people to show up at the council and the commissioner meetings. I've been the only one commenting, and they're sick of hearing my voice. The rooms are empty. GRH, when they were there, they packed that room full of people, and look how that turned out. We're not getting people showing up, so please come out, send in comments, talk, whatever you got to do. Make your voices heard. We have elections coming up in 2026. Vote to people in that agree with your points of view, and vote to people out that you don't want, and consider running for an office. I know there was a question back here. I want to get to you, sir.
We can't go back home without at least one stupid question, so has anyone ever been crazy enough to consider putting the stuff on a rocket and firing it toward the sun and let the gravity of the sun just pull it in? And if it, by some accident, re-enters the Earth's atmosphere, would it survive the re-entry temperatures in its radioactive form?
Great question. I think the answer is if the rocket explodes, we're going to spread radioactivity. That was my solution when I was a kid. Question there was over here.
Okay, you can go first. Okay.
Okay.
He's a psychopath.
Yeah, I'm a psychopath, certified. Just that question about it, and this is something that I've thought about also, but the lift cost and getting radioactive material in. Chris, you said there's how much out there?
120,000 tons.
120,000 tons. That's 240,000 pounds. Okay. What does it take just to take a space capsule to get it into space? That space capsule is 1/10 the size of the rocket. And what does it cost to get that rocket into space? It's not cost effective. So at least now, it's not. If we had vehicles that could take off from a runway and get into space and then come back into the atmosphere without burning up and land, it would be cost effective. And you can send it to the sun and it disappears. But we don't have that pleasure at this point. It doesn't exist. That's the answer to that question.
When I worked on the Savannah River site, we had to carry a dosimeter which measures your exposure. We walked around with Geiger counters. Didn't matter where we went. The whole area was hot. Didn't matter where you are. Well about similar probably for you at Hanford. I was in a big program. We worked with the University of Washington. They were covering Hanford. We covered Savannah River. Everything's radioactive. It's not even a question. I see
The wife is ignored.
This is a picture I took on Savannah River site. Starvis by Peter Shredder. You go in through a secure gate, you have to go through checkpoints, and this was on the side of the road. This is on a secure site. One thing, security, just food for thought. Is this stuff going to be secure? Over to my wife before she gets mad.
So when all of this nuclear stuff started coming to Gillette and Wyoming, Biden was in office, right? But now he's out, and Trump is pushing coal now. So why are we, at this point in time, the change in climate, political climate, why are we even still pursuing this when we have coal that will last, a lot of coal, And they're making it up as they go along. They still don't have all these solutions. So, am I supposed to pass this over?
So that's a great question. I just went to Washington to talk to the Department of Energy, the Department of the Interior, and the EPA about this very subject, as well as the White House. And of course, I was promoting coal because, as you said, got lots of it. It's the lowest price electricity that you can produce, as Chris said earlier. And of course, knowing that this was going on, I made sure I visited the nuclear department to discuss this stuff. And to answer your question, the Trump administration put out 5 executive orders, I believe, Chris, on nuclear, and they have put some executive orders out on coal.
This week.
First of all, to tell you about coal, they're serious. They're working very hard. They're working on things like an export terminal in Oakland, California. They're doing all kinds of things. They've got 4 million acres that they want to open up mineral leasing on. They've got a program where they're going to help us fund building new power plants, coal-fired power plants. So they're very serious about coal. They're very serious about nuclear as well. The problem with nuclear is that we've gotten behind Russia and China, and it is necessary for the Department of Defense. We cannot run our submarines on coal. So we need the nuclear for our submarines. It works very well for aircraft carriers. We need to get advancing on that. The problem I see is that Russia and China don't give a dang about the waste, and we do. So we have to invest money on the waste side while we're outpacing them on the design side of things. So right now, all the money is going to the design of new nuclear stuff. It's not going to the waste, and that's the problem. That's why you've got casks that we just talked about. Could they come up with better technology? I would think so, but they're not investing in it nearly enough. We haven't invested in it, mostly because the environmentalists have said no to nuclear, so it's been on the back shelf. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but Trump basically fired the entire NRC. I think one guy survived on the entire council. And he gave the new NRC 240 days to come up with a plan for the waste. So I had several discussions. I can talk to you individually about that. That 240-day report should come out in January if they took the full 240 days. So the answer is they are pushing on coal, which would help our middle class. The American dream is based on low-cost energy and people being able to be entrepreneurs and invent things and produce things. And we need that low-cost energy to do that. We also need it to bring this manufacturing back from other parts of the world. We need low-cost energy. And the president knows coal is the answer. But we also need the nuclear for the Department of Defense. So the Freedom Caucus, our stance is that we are pro-nuclear, and we have lots of opportunities here in Wyoming to work on the side of producing the fuels. And that's what I told both the Trump administration and the Department of Energy. At this point, we don't want to do anything until we see your 240-day report on what you're going to do with the waste. So we're not changing our laws, which we shared with you earlier what those laws are, until we see what the federal government's going to do. That draws a lot of ire from some of our colleagues. If you go out and look at what Ogden Driscoll's saying, he's pretty critical of the Freedom Caucus for that stance, as is Scott Clem. So that's where we're at right now, and we believe that we're there in support of the people, because all of these polls are showing us the people are not there yet. And I will tell you this, they asked me, the nuclear department of DOE asked me, well, how can we convince the people of Wyoming to take this nuclear waste? And they knew, they had Shay and Jim Ford there the week or two before I got there. They knew, even those guys shared with the Department of Energy that there are concerns about waste. So they know that they've got a problem. They've had a problem long before you ever know. And if I could just say what I think the problem is you've got engineers who don't know how to talk to people, number one. Number two, when they don't have answers, and we've talked about that here tonight, they just say, we'll figure it out later. Well, that doesn't work with nuclear waste. There is no later. Once we take it in Wyoming, it's here to stay. Because the 40 years is going to have to be extended and extended and extended. The only way that changes if somebody like Wyoming says, we'll take it. Once that happens, then maybe these other places won't have to store it temporarily, but we'll be stuck with it. And who knows what that changes Wyoming into.
John, I'm gonna ask you.
John and I spoke on the phone, and I found something, and we talked about, recycling the fuel to reuse it. Can you comment on that a little bit? Would you mind? Or the NRC doesn't allow it here. That's what I saw, but I'll give it over to John. I think you spoke better to it.
Well, and again, that goes back to the environmentalists and the reason that Trump fired all the members of the NRC. They kind of promoted the environmentalist point of view, and that is that no nuclear. And there's one place that does recycle nuclear, and that's Russia. The plant that's being built in Kimmer could recycle, but it's being focused on generating electricity instead. So they asked me, how can we convince the people of Wyoming to take on nuclear waste? And I said, there's two things you need to start with. Number one, you need to stop sounding like Dr. Fauci and saying that this is safe and effective, because nobody's buying that. And number two, I said, and this is Dr. Goff, he's been published on recycling, done a lot of work on the recycling side of things. I said, you have a solution in recycling. You need to put that in your 240-day report. The thing at Bar None, where they're building these small modular reactors, if you think about it, if their business plan is successful, they're going to keep building more, and they're all coming back at 5-year intervals. And when they're 20 or 25 years old, they got to be completely torn apart and thrown away. This nuclear waste is just going to keep piling up. So it's kind of becomes exponential over time because they're going to be able to produce more and more each year. So recycling might be something that could help the people, maybe come along with it. And the reason that you would do that is so that you could continue to reduce the amount of that waste that's there. You can never get rid of it completely. But they've got to figure it out. That's a technological challenge because we're not doing it right now. They say we can do it. The science is there. Russia's doing it. Who knows how they're doing it. But I think that would be helpful if they could figure that out, because they could generate electricity while they're recycling and give Bar None or Casper some free electricity. Maybe that pays off for them. I don't know. But right now, it's pretty clear that people of Bar None don't want it.
Chris had a comment. I'm going to go to him.
Yeah, I just had a comment on the recycling too. So the more they develop new fuel, so that we talked about triso fuel, now they're up to triso 4 that they're talking about, it becomes more and more difficult to actually recycle that fuel because they're getting it down into such a small contained element that it makes it very difficult and prohibitive cost-wise to then recycle that. And that's why Radiant is stuck with a situation where the fuel they would use is very productive as far as energy is concerned, but at this point in time, there's no way to recycle it. Unless you spent an awful lot of money doing it, and it just is, like I said, it'd be totally cost prohibitive to do that. So.
Thank you. John, you mentioned the national security need for nuclear, and I think I probably align with you pretty evenly there, that I'm assuming you pro-nuclear. Like, I see its purpose, its value, where we're using it. My question is, on a global scale, like China's making these reactors and giving them to countries, and then they're using them. And that's gonna create even more waste, and you've got probably more countries that are gonna be going nuclear. A lot of Europe is nuclear. They're gonna re-energize the 3 Mile Island, the Palisades, and there was another one, I think, in New Jersey that they're gonna start making more electricity. And the global need and this race for AI, these data centers, things like that, we're kind of falling behind in some of that race. Would you agree, where the data centers?
No.
No?
If I may.
But I'm just kind of curious, like, nuclear is going nuclear globally. What's gonna happen, I guess? I guess we don't know, but that
We'll
would-
wipe out the people, that's what they want.
I don't have the answer to how many nuclear plants China's building and exporting. Maybe Chris has that. But I do know that they're exporting 200 coal-fired power plants a year. They're building 200 coal-fired power plants. So when they're extending their Belt and Road Initiative into Africa, it's coal. And it has to be because of the cost. And they're not giving it away free, you know, so they want low cost, so they're building coal. Now their coal is high sulfur, not like we have in Wyoming, and their coal-fired power plants probably don't have scrubbers like we do here. You look out at Dry Fork, it's amazingly clean, as, what is it, Trump says, beautiful, clean coal. That's what we have here. So when you think about the cost, you have to regulate nuclear because it's dangerous. And that increases cost. Chris mentioned it's expensive. It's more expensive than solar. It's more expensive than wind. It's the most expensive power. So do we have uses for it? Yes, I believe DOD has some very important uses for it. Is it wise to build more nuclear power plants? I think it only hurts the middle class. And the reason I say that is because it increases the cost of energy, just like wind and solar increases the cost of electricity. And we should be about the American dream. Trump is about make America great again. You want to make America great again, you burn coal. And you have the lowest cost of electricity in the world.
And John, what is it, 400 years?
Yeah, there's debate on how much we have, but you know, anywhere from 500 years to 1,000 years of coal to power the entire United States.
That's my point.
And you know, technology is always going to increase, so it may get that extended to even longer. But this coal seam that you see here on the surface in Campbell County, it goes all the way to the Bighorn Mountains. It just gets deeper, so you have to go under the earth to get it. It gets more expensive, but it's big, it's massive, it's a lot. And we're not the only place that has coal, but we have the best coal. So considering the mindset of Americans about coal being dirty, and the fact that the 588,000 people in Wyoming benefit from coal to a huge extent. All of our schools were built by coal. Not to mention, this town is very wealthy because of coal. If we're going to fight back to the mindset that is a fake mindset, it's a lie, that coal is bad, and that CO2 is bad. If we're going to fight back, it's going to take all 588,000 Wyomingites. So we can't have our mayor out there promoting nuclear. We can't have our county commissioners promoting nuclear over the top of coal, especially when it comes to energy generation for the private sector. Now, can we do a lot of different things, and can we diversify? Absolutely. We have uranium. We should be mining uranium. We should not be buying uranium from Russia. So when we passed the bill in 2021 to allow for the plant in Kemmerer, and then in 2022, the Ukrainian war started while we were in session in 2021. And we said, okay, if you're gonna do this plant in Kemmerer, you have to use Wyoming uranium. That was the first reading. That amendment failed. Second reading, okay, you have to use American uranium. That amendment failed. Third reading, you may not use Russian uranium, and that amendment failed. Okay? Now, the reason they fought us on that is because America wasn't producing uranium. And John Barrasso took that to heart. He read the article about all those amendments failing and said, we got to do something. And he's been working hard. I don't usually pat Barrasso on the back, but I am that he has advanced what we're doing in America to be self-sustaining on uranium. And Wyoming can do that. We can produce the fuels. We can burn the fuels and keep the waste here for that, but I'm not really happy about bringing burnt and spent fuel in from other places.
The world.
Until we have something else figured out.
Yeah, just one last thing. And going back to that question a little bit, I just wanted to say one last thing about, because I hear some commissioners say this is a market-driven deal with coal and things like that, but energy typically has been the biggest money laundering operation that you've ever seen, where you go from biofuels being subsidized to wind and solar, $400 billion to wind and solar. When Biden left, he did $8 billion for nuclear. And so last year was the highest producing year for coal worldwide. That's the market. Japan needs our coal. South Korea needs our coal. Taiwan needs our coal. It's just a matter of getting it to them. Wyoming exports up over 70% of our energy. And so again, the question is why? You look at AI and data, look at what's happening in Wyoming. We have AI and data sprouting up all over Wyoming. And what's it running on? Well, first it was wind and solar, because those companies wanted that energy to do it, so they do it offline from the grid. Now we have natural gas that are producing some. Up in Campbell County, we have companies that are looking at natural gas and coal to produce that AI data. So it works to use the energy that's available, the energy that's cheapest. And AI data, to me, in other states, as they search for ways to capture that market, Wyoming should be doing both. Wyoming should be trying to capture that market, as well as going back to the surrounding states and saying, remember those long-term contracts we used to have? Well, let's do long-term contracts on baseline power, because you really don't have the energy to chase this AI and data. You're using energy that is your baseline energy, wherever it's coming from, wind, solar, nuclear. And so let's create a system where we're backfilling basically reliable, cheap, long-lasting energy, and do it for those 10-year contracts, those 15-year contracts that we used to have with coal. That's the answer for Wyoming. Use the resources that you have in abundance to help the Trump administration, to help the country advance in AI and data, in defense. But we don't have to put ourselves out there to be the victim of waste. We really don't. We have the resources that the nation needs to power the country.
You want my opinion?
Yeah, I was hoping you'd say something.
I ain't going, you don't come back here, I'll come back.
Yeah, I was gonna come get him.
Are you in for demand?
I thought you weren't home, Bob. I was asleep.
Whoa.
That's all interesting, folks. I do appreciate you all coming.
Put
I
it
think
up.
when you look at the
Put it up,
politics of
Bob.
this thing, I think you don't realize the politics and actually what went on here to get our community, our state, start looking at nuclear. Best way I can say is they got played. In 2009, Yucca Mountain, President Obama said, "No, we're not gonna do this thing." So at that point, the Department of Energy and RC backed up. So okay, if we're gonna do this, we gotta do it different. They put together what's called a consent-based siting program. They have been working it now since 2010, and they're very good at it. What that is instead of going to state level, they're going to try and come into communities and try and work their way down from top to bottom, rather than trying to just go do it. So one of the things John was sharing with you is actually, at that time, Department of Energy put together what's called a so if I can put this, Nuclear Waste Technical Review Board. These are at Ph.Ds from all over the country. And they came together this board. They were renewed by each president. So generally when the president comes in, he fires that board. As John said, they fired everybody but one of them. So they keep changing up people, but these are Ph.Ds who have the knowledge to do what they're doing, okay? These are the bright kids in the back of the room. So he puts this report out in 2000. So a report went out in November 2015. Anybody here know what happened in November of 2015? Our coal was shut down in Wyoming. While our coal was being shut down, this report went to the United States Congress. This actually says report to the United States Congress and the Secretary of Energy from this panel of very bright people. In addition to working in America, they also work overseas. And overseas, the technicians and the brilliance, the PhDs all came with the same answer. Deep repository storage. It's got to go underground. Okay? So you can hear about interim storage, you can hear about deep repository. Interim storage is temporary.
Temporary.
Wherever it ends up, it'll stay there.
Right.
Right now, it's temporarily being stored on site because that's the agreement that was made way back when. If you take nuke, you store it on site, you get a little bit of money, when it's done, we get it back. Well, there's 8 sites say they're not taking it back because they don't have deep repository. They've been playing this game now for this long. So I suggest you go out and look at consent-based siting. You all go look at it, and you'll find a lot of articles. How it works out is first things you begin to give money to education. You begin to recruit business people. You put it into state's business development group. We put money into it. In addition, they started what's called the ECA, which is Economic Community Alliance, which means they will put money out to communities to build infrastructure, to help people get used to what they're doing and trying to come into it, okay? And look at that ECA, look at the EOD and DOE, particularly in RC. Our people have won nuclear and the state's been played very well. The plan goes exactly as it wanted to go. In 2016, they went to Rugby, North Dakota to drill a pilot hole for deep repository storage. So there's 2 types of deep repository storage. There actually be shafts underground like it is at the WIP, which by the way is the Waste Isolation Pilot Program. Pilot means temporary, or pilot means experimental. So they're experimenting underground in Texas right now. So they went up to North Dakota and tried a repository. They're going to drill down 15,000 feet to put this fuel into. Now this is a very small borehole, so we're not talking about the big storage here. We're talking about the little stuff. And so they threw a fit. So they never went off. They had a plan to put down 15,000 feet. That's a long way to go to get some nasty stuff stored. So interim storage, what does it look like? Interim storage is a 150-ton concrete cask. Inside is a storage bin, stainless steel welded. When they get done with the waste, they weld the top. That new design actually is vented. It's vented in the bottom, vented out top. That's to cool it. They actually have people standing by and saying, man, look how much heat's coming off this thing. Because it is actually, they take it out of the wet cells, they put it in, they cool it that way. So they are trying to work on new storage. The reality is, where it comes to is the last ride it gets. By federal law, where you actually burn this stuff has to stay as interim, temporary, but eventually have a repository. So let's say Reagan wants to come in, and they want to go ahead and they want to put this reactor in. They'll send the reactor off. They'll make it hot. When it comes back, it's our fuel. Will they put interim storage in concrete casks, or they put it underground? Immediately in the repository, it's hard to say. So the cask is 150 tons of concrete with an inner cavity that's cooled with natural air, and it can only hold 15 tons of fuel. That's it.
That's it?
There's 180,000 tons of fuel in this country. Now, also, they've also by law got to clean up. Now, that's just spent energy, spent fuel runs. They want to clean up the INL, Savannah, and Hanford. They have to, because guess what? In their lawsuits, they have to do it. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have a crisis in nuclear waste, and we don't know what to do about it. They know what they're going to do about it. They're going to find a home. That report I shared with you, when it was sent out in 2015, actually shows a map of the areas that they want to put the waste in, because geology. Okay? When we were at the INL, they told us we were going to have a nuclear corridor from Wyoming coal strip through Wyoming, down through Utah and to New Mexico. They've already picked out the 3 states are going to get it. There's like 13 states with no nukes in them. Okay? The 3 states were already been picked out. They already told us in INL. Is that right, Chris? Nuclear corridor?
I think they did.
Yep. So here we sit. So it's already been selected. The brain's already done it. Now it's about getting the public involved. So
After it's been decided, let us know.
They haven't decided yet. They've got 10 places to put it. But the reality is they've got the region put. They're not going to put this stuff in Georgia. So they've got the region picked out. Is Campbell County on the list? Well, right now, actually Powder River Basin's on that map, 2016. A couple other places in Wyoming, in Utah, and New Mexico. Because of geology. Not because of Campbell County, but because of geology. Make a story here. Yes?
So that's also going to
Give her the mic.
that would also shortcut any potential future coal mining.
Well, think about this, folks. You got to think in time. Okay, this has been going on now 40 or 50 years. All right? So the coal mines have got enough production for going out 10, 15 years. Not because not enough coal like John shares, because your power plants are getting older and they're not building new ones. Right now in this country, does anybody have a clue how short we are in base load power? 35,000, 45,000 megawatts. Now, to put that in relationship, this county produces 1,100 megawatts for our power plants. It's going to take 10 years at least, or 15, they start to build these plants. In addition to build new nuclear plants, because all these plants take time and money. You just don't go turn one on. You've got to build multiples. The infrastructure's got to be challenged to do that. Okay? So the plants are getting older, the new plants are getting older. As they come offline, every year this country produces about 2,200 tons of domestic fuel waste. 2,200 tons. So in 10 years, it's 20,000 tons more. In 20 years, that's 40,000 tons, right? When you take a nuclear reactor apart, it's not just the waste. You got to cut the reactor up, and it goes into those cylinders. Because the reactor is hot. Now it's a plant. It can be low-level waste or high-level waste. It goes into these totes. So as we continue to build more nuclear, we have to figure out what to do with it. In addition, the waste that's going to come off of Hanford, Savannah, and INL, some of it's military grade, some of it's low grade, some of it's just normal waste, right? They've been storing it, it's got to come off. So 3 sites have been taken off, that's going to be stored. Anybody here know what Rocky Flats is? So Rocky Flats in Colorado, for those that don't know. In the 1990s, U.S. Marshals, FBI showed up there and shut the place down and arrested people and they went to jail because they were not doing the waste that they should be doing. They weren't doing the reports. They took the waste from Rocky Flats and knocked the buildings down, put a dirt cap on top of it, hauled that waste to INL. They put it down the side of the ground. So this is all now. Instead of being above ground, they actually just only have 20 feet below ground. So the lids are on top of the ground. Those are particular ones because it's weapon grades. This is nasty stuff. This is the top end. This is weapon grades, trigger material, which whoever worked in INL or worked at Hanford, who was that?
Yeah, I remember that Rocky Flats happening. I was working at Hanford when that happened.
So this is the stuff they put in those containers. We actually drove into it. So this is the containers. They said we had to move them. So what was put in 2009 was moved very short time later because the containers had failed underground. Well, that's a high grade fuel. That's not like the nuclear reactor fuel rods, but it just tells you there's different levels of danger here, okay? They moved them over. What are they gonna do with the old ones? Probably fill them full of concrete. They don't have a choice because they're now hot. People say we're gonna take out one container and put in another. Right now, see if I have a clue how many containers are actually sitting on site right now, just in nuclear reactors. Any clue? Pick a number. About 4,000.
Ah! Wow.
They're taking 2,200 out of service.
Holy
2,200 tons
smokes.
are coming out of service every year. You can put 150, you can put 15 tons in it, and a 150-ton casket. So do the math as we go in this next 10, 15 years. Traceable fuel, that's what these beam WXTs do in my building. It's a process, a refining process. I can't tell you what the waste is, but I'm gonna find out from them, because it is a process. Now, they are in Lynchburg, West Virginia, and they say they're able to treat the water and put it down in sewers. I don't know, we'll find out, okay?
That's a good place.
Well, if it's treated, if it's treated,
Right.
that's how they feel. Because every refining process has a treatment, right? Radiant wants to build these reactors. They want to send them off, and when it comes back to refuel, we'll get that fuel. Excuse me, we'll get that fuel stored as interim storage. It's not taking a ride no place else. All right, now this will be traceable. So traceable, like they're sharing, is 5% hot for normal rods. This is 19.5%. It's hot. Where the fuel inside of a reactor is in wet conditions, actually got a tube down there, they do a control rod up and down, they can get exciting, as easy as I can tell you. This does come in a dry environment, using gases as generators to the water and steam, right? So it's a whole different process. Will they build more light water reactors? I doubt they're gonna build a lot of them. They got 2 coming online now, they've been 15 years, they've been developing that, I think it's been, that's 15 years, it's a long time. You need 45 new reactors, I think we're a little short here. So as we go through this and we watch the politics of this thing, this is politics, people. This is nothing more.
Right.
Look at the politics of the federal end, look at the politics from the NRC, DOD, the DOE, and watch how this turns out. So nuclear is going to have a waste. I've had people tell me, well, once it's in the caskets, there's no danger to it. When they leave it above ground, leave it where it is.
Put it in your yard.
They won't because they can't. They know they want a deep repository for a reason. Otherwise, put it in concrete, leave it above ground. Forever. Go ahead.
Just as a means to get around the politics, could you make a rule that whatever you store in one state has to be stored in the other 49? Equal amount. So what's fair for the goose?
Equity.
They want to bring it all together.
No.
I know, but their policy nationally is to bring it once, up to 10 spots, I think. Consolidated, they would like to have 10 sites, that'd be 2 or 3, who knows what national politics, who knows when they finally get a free shot to what they'll do. What this looks like is there's a concrete pad, it's a big concrete pad. Looks like they stand about 500 of these things, and weigh 150 tons, they look like small mini silos, they just set them there, put 3-ring security around them, and they just sit, just let them sit. At some point, they're gonna have to go underground, whether it be 50 years or 100 years, doesn't matter. It's gonna go underground. Every single scientist in the world today who knows this is talking about this. Same time this report was made in 2015, they also got this report, also all the Europeans. Right now, the Europeans are putting theirs in the mountains, and they don't have none of the waste we have. They don't have weapons, the Norwegians don't have weapons program. Swedes don't, Swiss don't, they don't have it. The French do, they do some different things. But their nuclear program is very pricey. They do some recycling, all because they don't have access to fuels, all right? So this is about the politics of it, and nothing more, nothing less. We gotta, BWXTs will be coming in here, they're going to be, making some fuel, so I'm gonna research that, see what's going on, because I'm a neutral here. I just look at the science and look at the politics of it. So just be aware, and got people in town here, they don't even have a clue about this. I've sat and talked about it, I get the funniest look on their face, because they're at the tail end of the consent-based siting, and it's been well played for them. That's what I'm saying. My questions? Yes.
It's not a question, but the unspoken thing is it's not a finite problem. It's infinite. So once they start filling up those 3 states, then what? It's not a
Well-
finite problem.
It takes a lot of fill in 3 states, because this is, like I said, it's a football field in 5
Yeah, but everything's gonna grow exponentially.
Well, remember, one thing that keeps a nuke really from taking off is money. Not enough money, people. There's not enough money to build out 45 nuke power plants right now. I'm telling you, there's not enough money, no more of anything else. They're gonna build what they can build. That's all they're gonna do. They're gonna build what they can afford to build for this energy. And, you know, when you look at communities, it's strange that as soon as coal comes out, nuke steps in. Cameron's one of them. Let's talk about Hayden and Craig, Colorado. 2 big power plant projects. Their plants will be shut down. Suddenly, nuke shows up to be a storage for them.
Amazing.
And remember, the DOE runs both of those, the coal and the nuke side of it. So if your saver shows up on a horse, gonna bring this to you, be careful, because it's a game and it's politics, and they have to get this waste gone. They're not joking about this. This is a crisis. Okay, as these power plants come offline, most of them are 40 years old, they might do another 20-year permit. At some point, they're gonna come offline, and that's more waste. As new technology comes on, these small modular reactors, these are a little bit different technology and a little bit bigger reactors. This is coming, and you have legacy waste you have to take care of. And that's what you're really fighting this battle about, is legacy waste.
Yeah.
Thank you.